Good evening, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Ask Leah. I hope you have had a fantastic Wednesday, first day of the week for a lot of people who took a long weekend. I was straight back into the thick of it today, not that I had a long weekend myself. This morning, I was off coaching a client in Morwell, which was awesome. He's doing some incredible things, really making some awesome decisions about the future direction that his life's taking. And it's amazing. It's so inspiring to work with people as they make some of these really big decisions in their life. I also then traveled to Sale, and I delivered a keynote today at Central Gippsland Health at Sale Hospital there as part of their fantastic Wellvember health and wellbeing program. And today's keynote was Calm the Farm, Self-Management at Times of Stress. I think we had close to 40 people along to that one. And one of the key points that I reiterated to these hospital staff, so from doctors, nurses, admin, allied health, was the importance of them putting their own oxygen mask on first. Now, a lot of you have heard me speak about that before. It's cliched because it's true. You know, particularly when you work in an industry like health, you are so focused on helping everyone else that we can forget about ourselves. And the reality is, you can't help other people unless you first help yourself. So the parting message to those staff today was finding their oxygen mask, finding their one thing that helps them manage their stress and manage themselves under pressure wasn't a luxury. It wasn't self-indulgent to be doing that thing on a regular basis. It's actually essential, and they owe it to their patients to be doing that, because the only way they can bring their best version of themselves to work is if they look after themselves first. Okay, into questions this week. I've had some cracking great questions come in and some conversations that I've had with people through the week. I have answered both of these questions with the person directly first, because with the people, I should say, it's two different questions, because they were some pretty significant curly questions. So it was important that I was able to provide that level of support rather than just answer the question on here. The first one came in from someone who is having the challenge, they're in leadership themselves, but they're having the challenge of working with someone who is a very domineering leader above them, very old school command and control style leadership. And this other person, this domineering leader, is very much focused on being right, not getting it right, on being right and other people being wrong. And this person contacted me to ask about some advice for how to communicate with this person to give them a chance of being heard. You know, you can't control how they respond. You can't make them get on board, but how could they give themselves a better chance? So we spoke about a few different ideas. We spoke about the importance of speaking to that person's motivations and drivers. So not just saying what she wanted to say, but actually thinking about what he wanted to hear, how you could sort of work to his ego. It looks like one of my children might be coming in, but we'll continue anyway. How you might respond, talk to his ego and present it in a way that gets him to listen. One of the other key things to do with someone like this is to make sure when you're framing the start of the conversation, rather than coming in and saying, well, look, I think this, and having it get into a, well, I don't, I disagree, you're right, I'm wrong. One of the great things to do at the start of a conversation with someone like this is to get agreement from them on something. And to do that, what you appeal to is the common ground. So you might say something like, so, you know, we're here today to chat about the best approach to dealing with this customer. And, you know, I'm sure we can all agree that the number one outcome we want is the best outcome for our business while also meeting their needs. Is that something we can all agree on? And get them to agree on something so that then you can follow up and say, Okay, so we're probably going to have different ideas and suggestions and ways of approaching this. And we want to make sure we consider all of these different ideas, because remembering that our aim, our purpose here today is to get that best outcome. Again, try to get their agreement. And what you do by getting their agreement on this is hopefully getting them to then open their ears, because they've agreed, yeah, that's what we're here for. We're here to get the best outcome. We're here to listen. And then they kind of have to. It's the same thing when you are asking to give someone feedback, particularly someone who is superior to you in their, and by superior, that's the wrong word, isn't it? Who is, further up the hierarchy in a higher position to you, say to them, I'd love to share my thoughts with you on this project. I actually suggest avoiding the word feedback just because it has some negative connotations. There's nothing wrong with it. I personally love feedback, but a lot of people get very defensive. So, can I share my thoughts, my ideas, or my observations, my experience, whatever it might be, with you on that? Because I've got a couple of insights, or I've got some ideas about that. By asking for permission, they're not going to say no, but by saying, are you happy for me to share with you my thoughts with you? Once they've agreed, again, they're saying yes to feedback. So they're less likely to go straight onto the defense than if you just sit down and said, I'm going to give you some feedback. Okay, so it's all about the way you go about it. Communication is so nuanced. Again, with those command and control style leaders, make sure you've done the thinking first. People who tend to communicate aggressively are quite impatient a lot of the time. So make sure you know your key message, that you've done the thinking, you've got the counter arguments, you've thought of the different approaches, and you've really done something I call Q&A sparring, which is where you consider the questions they're likely to shoot back at you before they're fired. So you consider those questions, you come up with some responses so that you really can counter that quickly. At the end of the day, though, you can't control other people. You can only control you. You can influence them, and that should be your aim, to influence their decisions, influence their behaviours, but you can't control them. So focus on what you can control and influence where you can, and then you've got to let go of that result. Okay, another question that came in this week, another tricky question, a people problem, had to do with someone whose manner is causing issues within a team. They're, again, quite aggressive, can be very abrupt, very flustered, very all over the place, frantic in the way they work, and it's having an impact on other staff in the team. And this leader contacted me and said, what do I do here? The key thing is to address the behaviour. Unfortunately, I see this a lot, where we will happily have conversations with people about their performance if they're not getting the results we need, but we're not as proactive in addressing behavioural issues. And here's the thing, behavioural issues are just as important. Actually, I think they're more important to address and nip in the bud early than performance or result problems, because behavioural problems impact a whole team. They can cause a toxic culture very quickly. There used to be this belief that as long as they're getting results, they're my star performer, will kind of turn a blind eye to this poor behaviour or the way they're speaking to clients or customers or treating their colleagues. The smartest organisations, the most switched on organisations, are realising that that is the wrong approach. It doesn't matter if someone is your top performer. If their behaviour is toxic to the team or is having an impact on the team or you in any way, it's crucial that you address that quickly. And not to punish the other person. Half the time you're doing them a favour most of the time as well. Okay, there's this difference between kind and nice that I've spoken about before. Hi, Denise. Not addressing behavioural issues because you want to keep the peace, that is not kind. And by trying to be nice, what you are doing is being very unfair to that person, because they might be oblivious to their poor behavior. A lot of people are. They might be oblivious and you're not giving them a chance to rectify it. But by keeping the peace and not having that difficult conversation with them, you are allowing that behavior to flourish, and it is impacting everyone else in the team. And that is so unfair to them. So do the kind thing and have that difficult conversation. And the earlier you can have it, the better. I've got a whole heap of tools and strategies for having those conversations that I've spoken about before. I can go into them again at another time if you tell me that's what you would like me to cover. So that's the second question. She had to address it. Okay, she had to address it, and she had to do it quickly, and she had to address it with this person one-on-one. The temptation is to address it with the whole team and you know, sort of make generalized statements. Don't do that. This really was a one-on-one conversation. And the key thing to start the conversation was not to come in and say, your behavior is not on, you need to change. At the very start, frame it with some great coaching questions. Ask her how she's traveling, because you've noticed some changes in her behavior. You know, how's she finding her role at the moment? What are her challenges? And quite often what this will open is a dialogue where that person will admit, I'm really stressed at the moment. You know, I know it's having an impact. Not always, you won't always get there, but a lot of the time you will. So have those conversations. Last question tonight. There is a third one, and I'll fit it in quickly because it's a short, sweet, and an easy one. Someone asked me this week, how do I make a great impression? I've been doing some work with some job seekers as part of a program with the Latrobe Valley Authority. How do I make a great impression? And it's simpler than you think. There is another cliche, because it's true, that people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And it is so true. So how do you make a great impression? How do you make people remember you and in a positive light? It is the simple things. When you greet people, do you smile? Do you seem interested and enthusiastic? Now, this isn't saying everyone has to be an extrovert. You can still be that introverted, reserved person, but do you look like you care? So are you smiling? Are you greeting them warmly and using their name if you know it, or asking their name with genuine interest? Are you showing interest and asking them questions about what they do? Are you, in that initial introduction, shaking their hand? And look, the handshake still has a place, and you don't want a wet fish handshake. You don't want to do that limp handshake, nor do you want to go in with the, you know, gripping, strong, crush their bones handshake. Just a firm handshake, a smile, looking someone in the eye. Hi, it's wonderful to meet you, or it's a pleasure to meet you. That simple has a huge impact, and it communicates that you care, which is so important for connection. Okay, folks, that is it from me tonight. I have to go do readers and spelling words with 3 little boys. I hope you have a great shortened week, and I look forward to being back with you next week at this time for another episode of Ask Leah. Have a lovely week, everyone, and communicate warmly and confidently and courageously. Cheers.